Hey everyone, I'm Heinz and welcome to my channel. And in today's video, I will do a review of an expert advisor or trading robot that is available on the MQL5 marketplace. Now, for this example today, the EA is currently available for both MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5 and is currently listed as free on the marketplace. However, as we've seen with other expert advisors in the past, that the timing might be limited, so it's important that you take advantage of the expert advisor before the price increases. Now, this trading algorithm combines hedging as well as martingale strategy and is based on the idea that it can enter multiple positions with both buy and sell direction, and then after a loss is incurred, it increases the lot sizing according to the predefined system that we see listed on screen. Now, a couple of the advantages of the EA, it does have a special take profit for the first position, as well as a spread control or spread filter and a critical spread filter. Now, the default settings are prepared for the XAUUSD or spot gold against the US dollar, but it can also be optimized for crypto, other commodities, Forex pairs, and others. Now, some of the interesting things about this free expert advisor is it does use a multi-pair and also a multi-EA usage filter. What this means is you can add additional magic numbers and then it can limit on which trades and also block those specific numbers. It also features a dynamic volume multiplier and position entry according to candle direction and ATR, as well as the ADX indicator. On top of this, it has some time precision controls, gap protection settings, as well as a freeze trading system that can be very useful. He also provides us with a few of the recommendations, so I highly recommend that you take the time and go through the entire description as there's some important information for trading this expert advisor. As always, the first thing that I like to do is take a look at some of the images provided, and this will give us a better insight into potentially how it can trade live in the market. Now, one concerning thing that I saw in this publication is that it often features strategy tests that are only for a few months. But this still gives us an idea of how the expert advisor would have performed in recent market conditions, and we can come to our own conclusions from that. Now, on top of looking at the images, another important thing when it comes to any new expert advisor is to check out the profile of the programmer. What this means is we'll be taking a closer look at some of the other EAs that he is creating and also if he has any signal accounts so that we can track the live performance of his expert advisor. So at the moment, you'll see that HedgingMartingale EA is available for both MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. However, we don't see any active signals or accounts that we can follow to see how the bot is actually performing live in the market. So now that we've looked at the description of the expert advisor, let's do some strategy tests so we can see how it performs live in the market. Now, I will include a couple of different set files that are freely available for the EA, so we'll start by testing these. And as you can see, he's created set files for a few different instruments, so I'd recommend starting with these and then adapting them according to your own trading style. Now, as we read in the description of the expert advisors, the base settings are used for the XAUUSD, so we'll start there on the 15-minute time frame and test over the last year. In other words, from the 1st of January 2025 until the 12th of July 2025, and we'll use every tick based on real ticks, which will give you the most accurate type of modeling quality. Now, for these tests, I use a deposit of 3,000, but it's important that you adjust it according to your own balance. So the other only change that I made to the default setting is actually changing the maximum spread and the critical spread filter. And what this did, it gave me the following result over the last year. And this is concerning because we see these big spikes in the deposit load when the strategy enters its martingale hedging style. So the way that this works is if it takes a loss, the next entry will be using a larger lot sizing according to the scale that we saw earlier. Now, unfortunately, on default, what we see is that the total net profit of $1,634 is very close to the equity drawdown maximum of 1,400. This gives us a quite average profit factor of 1.37. Now, this is using his set file for the XAUUSD, or in other words, the default settings that are introduced for this expert advisor. Now, on top of this, I saw a few other set files for different pairs, so let's take a look at the one for the Euro USD. Now, the Euro against the US dollar set file is very different to the one used for XAU USD, so it's important that you load the separate set file to see how it performs in that specific market. Now, for this test, what I'll be using is the low risk version. However, I still saw a few things that might need to be adjusted if you want to use it live in the market. So now that we've loaded settings, again, I'm going to change the maximum spread and critical spread threshold for this specific broker. Alternatively, you can turn off the max spread limit if you first want to see how it performs without it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run a back test from the 1st of January 2025 until the 12th of July 2025 on the Euro USD using the low risk set file developed by the programmer. And we can again see this HedgingMartingale strategy, which in my opinion can be very risky. Because if that final trade, which comes with a big loss, goes in the wrong direction, it could potentially put the account at risk. But overall, during normal market conditions, it looks to be able to generate healthy profits. However, I'm really concerned of what's going to happen when it misses that big trade. So what I did with these, I ran a few strategy tests to see exactly how it would perform in that circumstance. And you'll see we went all the way from 3,700 down to 2,400, or in other words, a $1,300 loss. Now, what this EA does well, because of its multitude of settings, it's able to quickly recover back to the previous balance. But the thought process that I'm having is, what if it had another loss during that period? So that would mean we would go down from 2,400 even further down, which might put the whole account at risk. So this is using the low risk settings for the expert advisor. However, after running a bunch of different strategy tests, I was able to configure some more of my own. Now, the handy thing or impressive thing about this free EA is that it does have a multitude of different adjustable settings, meaning you can adjust and change it according to your own trading style. So a couple of the changes that I've made, and what we're going to do is I'm going to load one of my pre-made set files for Martingale Hedge EA. So what I've done is I've taken the base set file that we've previously saw from the developer. However, I've added some additional filters which could hopefully help save the account. So the first things that I changed again are the maximum spread and critical spread filter. And then on top of this, I limited the quantity or amount of hedging trades that can be placed at a single time. On top of this, I enabled the freeze trade period, meaning that after 4 trades, it will pause before following the trend again instead of going in a reverse order. Now, by doing this, it gives me an opportunity to wait a bit for the EA to find the right direction in the market. Then if we look at our weekday permissions or trading day permissions, I removed Friday from the list, which helps limit Friday's exposures. Then lastly, I like to use the trend filter settings where it combines the candle direction plus the ATR indicator instead of using just the ADX. So with all of these changes made, it's going to have a dramatic difference in the way that the graph is generated. So immediately we see there's a long pause before it enters another big lot. But again, if this entry is wrong, it could potentially put the whole account at risk. So by running these different settings and playing around, not only does it provide you with some insight into how the bot might perform live in the market, but can also give you ideas about updating or changing your own EAs. So for using this settings, we'll see that constantly it's now able to hit that final or recovery trade. However, this still imposes a large degree of risk on the account. So now that we've finished that back test, we can see that it constantly repeats this process of using a large lot to try and recover the losses. And even though this is highly dangerous, it can also be very profitable, as we had a total net profit of 3,485 with a maximum equity drawdown of 1,100. This gave us a profit factor above 2 at 2.09 with an average win rate of 62%. Now, guys, I hope that you found all of this information helpful. If you liked the video, please drop it a like. Until next time, happy trading. Bye.